Hey, fellow book lovers. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to outdo your past self? Like, let's say you made the perfect jollof rice once, and now every pot you cook after that just tastes like betrayal. Or maybe you told one good joke in 2002 and your friends have never let you forget it. Well, imagine that pressure. But now you're a world-famous author, with everyone comparing everything you write to your breakout hit from 30 years ago. You can't just write another book, you have to write the book. You have to top yourself, again and again, until you die. Now imagine being old, tired, maybe a little cranky, and still having to pull literary rabbits out of a very dry hat. Welcome to the hilarious, bittersweet, and brilliantly self-aware world of Portrait of the Artist as an Old Man by Joseph Heller. Let me tell you the story. Meet Eugene Pota. Eugene is an old man. Not just any old man, an old writer. A very specific kind of old writer. The kind who once wrote a very good book. A very good book. A book so good that nothing else he's written since then has been able to live up to it. Sound familiar? That's because it is. Eugene Pota is Joseph Heller with just enough of a wig on to call it fiction. In fact, the name Pota, Portrait of the Artist, is a not-so-subtle wink to the title itself.
I am very, very sleepy, sir.
So what's Eugene's problem? Simple. He wants to write another masterpiece. Just one more book that will shut the critics up, earn him a standing ovation, and maybe, just maybe, get him something other than he's the guy who wrote Catch-22 on his literary tombstone. But there's a catch, pun very much intended. Every idea he comes up with has already been done, either by some other writer or worse, by himself. He's exhausted every theme: love, war, death, sex, marriage, the absurdity of life, the futility of everything. He has written about everything, and yet somehow, nothing at all. But Eugene is stubborn. He's not ready to put down the pen and just go play golf like the rest of his retirement-age friends. No, writing is all he knows. It's his identity, his addiction, and maybe even his curse. He brainstorms ideas, throws around titles, and even contemplates writing a book called The Sexual Biography of My Wife. That's a working title, mind you. One that, honestly, I kind of wish had made the final cut. It sounds spicy. Eugene's agents, by the way, aren't exactly spring chickens either. They're just as old and wrinkled and dying out as he is. Their conversations are a hilarious mix of ambition, confusion, and quiet resignation. Nobody's trying to change the world anymore. They just want to make it to the next lunch. What's brilliant is that this isn't really a story about something. It's a story about someone trying to write a story that never quite comes together. It's the book about the book that never got written. And here's where Heller drops the final curtain. On the very last page, Eugene, or is it Heller, writes,
"Oh shit," sighed the elderly author, and chuckled to himself once more. He was not surprised, and he began to think seriously of writing the book you have just read.
Page 233. Boom, mic drop, book over. So what's the name of this wonderfully self-referential, genre-bending, laugh-out-loud, slightly heartbreaking book? Portrait of the Artist as an Old Man by Joseph Heller, published in 2000, shortly before his death. This was his last book, a final wink from a man who knew the game better than anyone. Now let's talk. This isn't your typical novel. There's no real plot, no traditional arc, no resolution in the usual sense. What you get instead is a raw, vulnerable, often very funny glimpse into the mind of a writer who has seen it all and written most of it. I loved how unashamedly honest it was. Eugene doesn't pretend to be inspired. He's not chasing the muse. He's cursing at it. He's sitting at his desk day after day, trying to squeeze blood from a stone. And sometimes that blood turns out to be wine. And other times, well, it's just dry. You can feel the weight of Heller's own career in every page. Like Eugene, Joseph Heller was haunted by the massive success of Catch-22 and never quite managed to outshine it. And honestly, that's a tough act to follow. It's like being the band that made one iconic album and then spent the next 30 years trying to recreate that magic. But what Heller does brilliantly here is own it. He doesn't hide from the shadow of Catch-22. He dances in it. He laughs at it. He pokes it with a stick and turns it into material. He writes a book that says, "Yes, I peaked early. So what?" Here's a book about how annoying you all are for bringing it up. There's also something very human here. A softness under the satire. You don't just see a tired writer. You see a man facing the end of his career, of his life, of his relevance. And he meets that end with grace, humor, and a healthy dose of mischief. And let's talk about the ending again. That last line? That moment when the author admits he's just now starting to think seriously about writing the very book we're holding in our hands?
He began to think seriously of writing the book you've just read.
It's genius. It reframes the entire experience. You close the book and think, wait, was that the story all along? Yes, it was. And it's a good one. Let's unpack some themes, shall we? 1. The burden of success. This book explores what it means to be trapped by your own greatness. When your debut work becomes a classic, everything after that is a letdown. It's a writer's worst nightmare, and Heller faces it head-on. The fear of irrelevance, it's not just about writer's block for Eugene. He's honestly struggling to matter at all. As he gets older, the world just keeps on spinning without him. New, younger writers pop up everywhere. Literary tastes shift and change. And there he is, sort of trapped in a time capsule, clinging to his old typewriter and memories of better days. The absurdity of the creative process really comes through here. Writing in this book is portrayed as both noble and, well, pretty ridiculous. Eugene tries every trick he can think of. He dreams up raunchy titles, digs up old ideas, even tries copying himself or parodying other writers. And still, nothing quite works. It's funny, honestly, but also kind of painfully relatable for anyone who's ever tried to make something that matters. Death and legacy, that's what it all comes down to, right? At its core, this is a book about endings. The end of a career, the end of a creative life, and yeah, the end of Heller himself. But instead of giving us a somber, reflective memoir, he hands us a comedy. It's like a final laugh before the curtain falls. Joseph Heller was born in 1923 and passed away in 1999. He's best known for his satirical novel Catch-22, which became a cultural touchstone and coined a phrase that's now part of everyday language. But despite his fame, Heller struggled with the very success that made him a household name. None of his later works matched the impact of his first. And in Portrait of the Artist as an Old Man, he confronts that reality with brutal honesty. This book was published posthumously in 2000. It's short, just 233 pages, but it's packed with wit, insight, and a kind of weary charm that only someone at the end of the road can summon. So, would I recommend Portrait of the Artist as an Old Man? Absolutely. It's not for everyone. If you're looking for action, suspense, or even a traditional story arc, you won't find it here. But if you've ever wondered what goes on inside the head of a writer when the words stop flowing, if you've ever struggled to live up to your own hype, or if you just enjoy smart, self-aware, slightly grumpy humor, this book is a hidden gem. It made me laugh. It made me think. And it made me appreciate the courage it takes to face the blank page, especially when the world expects nothing less than genius. Thanks for watching, and if you've read this book or any other by Joseph Heller, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell a friend who's been sitting on their one great novel for 20 years that they're not alone. Catch you in the next review. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.